However you are and whenever you are, this is Alan B. Smith. Join us once again on this trip through the cosmic playground. We are in a time slip tonight, so you're probably wondering, why are we broadcasting live on Spreaker on a Saturday night, 11 p.m.? Well, because we traversed the cosmic highway of paranormal portals and we got slipped, and this is where we came out on the other end. So yeah, tonight's going to be getting weird. We're going to be talking about Elvis from Outer Space and a very, very zany and quirky film. And then we'll be talking to Michael, who is with me now, Michael 8 from Septembrio, about his new single, Death by Luxury. And then Mac Barnes of Kessel Run Comics, and hopefully my friend Andrew will be joining us as well to talk DC extended universe, the multiverse, what is happening in the film world, HBO Max streaming, the MCU, because everything seems like it's changing. And of course, with having Mac on, we have to talk about Star Wars. And that's, again, another whole universe that it's been flipped a couple of times, and now it looks like we're going to go through some changes again. So we'll talk to Mac and hopefully Andrew in a little bit as we go. As a reminder, if you are listening to this audio live, you can watch it on YouTube. That's Paranormal Pop. So go to youtube.com/paranormalpop and on Facebook, facebook.com/paranormalnowradio, and follow me on Twitter @paranormal_now for show updates. Okay, so let's get funky, let's get weird, but also let's get serious. Michael 8, who is the brilliant artist behind the bumper music you hear every week by Septembrio, his group, here on Paranormal Now, is with us to talk about his new single under his new musical group name. And this one's a little heavy. This one's. I mean, okay. So to be fair, Michael, your work, we talk about how kind of bumps and grinds with the paranormal a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you take on some darker themes and lighter themes, as it were. Dealing with your own personal experiences. But this one has a little bit more commentary, I think, than I'm used to hearing from you.
Right. Yeah. So Septembrio has always been kind of a dreamy, almost surreal kind of soundscape, and meshes well with the paranormal themes and all that. Telephone Silence is different in theme and sound. It's technically post-hardcore, which is like a kind of a heavy punk sound, and it's just so much the music that I listen to is heavier and of that sound. Glassjaw, Thrice, I've always been a big fan of that. I've always wanted to do that for a long time, and I'd always get this itch to do it, and the stars just kind of aligned for me, and got some good opportunity to start recording these songs, and it's interesting that it's happening now, because there's all these things happening in the world. Everyone's very politically minded right now. Mm-hmm. And Telephone Silence, for as long as I've been writing this material, just kind of like privately on my own, it's always been, political, social commentary, right. Critical of just basically all the systems that run our lives. And, a little bit, it dabbles a little bit into conspiracy theory too, mm-hmm. although not too much. When I first started writing these songs like 10 years ago, or even, longer ago, I was very conspiracy minded, and I was really hoping that, the rest of the world would someday start to question the official story a bit more, rather than just accepting what they're told all the time. Yeah. And now we're in a very different landscape. It's like everybody is conspiracy minded now, except I don't get the warm fuzzies when I think about that anymore, because it almost seems like people aren't just questioning what they're told. They're just swapping one set of answers for the other. So nobody's living in the question. They're just believing something different. And I think that's equally as dangerous.
Yeah, I think
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's funny you say living in the question.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of similar, I guess, to my tagline at the end of the show, live in the mystery. Because it's in that kind of space where you're better suited to find truth rather than being resolved in your convictions all the time. Because sometimes,
Right.
no matter who we are, where we're coming from, our intentions may be good. They may be even noble, but they might be faulty.
Yes. And when you stop searching for the truth because you think you have it, you're never further from the truth when you're not looking for it anymore. So it's, and most of the time when you look back on your life, you probably realize you've been wrong for most of it. So I think I've said it before to you, that's why I like the paranormal so much, is that it's almost impossible to answer. So it kind of gets you used to being in that question state and just enjoying it a bit, you know? But, you know, paranormal has its conspiracy theories too. And there's all sorts of belief systems based on what people think to be true or want to be true. So, yeah, telephone silence is kind of tackling that side of the coin.
Right.
People thinking they got things figured out, or, you know, the hypocrisy of, you know, placing your beliefs on others, which is happening a lot in today's political climate. Everyone's just kind of butting heads, and so you can expect a lot more music to, you know, provide some commentary on that political landscape of people being divided into two sides when nothing is that simple. I find that really interesting.
Yeah. So for those listening, if they're not familiar, I'm just going to play a little bit of your music from Septembrio first, so we can hear the contrast a little bit. So this is My Own Light, which is one of my favorite songs by Septembrio. Okay, so that gives you a vibe there, right? Now,
yeah, it's pretty dreamy.
It's very dreamy. Now, if we listen to a little bit of actually your new song, then I think people go, "Wow, what happened?" Like, what happened, Mike? Michael. So let's do that. Let's see if we can get this up here. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to play this for you now.
Oh, you're playing the video.
Yep.
Okay.
Hold on to your britches, everybody. All right, so I'm going to end it there. If you want to check this out, just go to Telephone Silence on YouTube. Search Death by Luxury music video by Telephone Silence. Now, so Michael, you know, we don't do politics on this show. But
right.
One of the things that struck me about the music video is you're stirring the conversation of our sort of complacency for the system that serves us, and a seeming lack of compassion or empathy for the well-beings of those that are serving us, and in one case that would be animals. And I've flirted back and forth with being a vegan. I've been a vegetarian or a pescatarian most of my life. So for me, I welcome anyone who wants to come on to this program and talk animal rights, you know, because for me that's not political, you know. I see beings that have feelings, especially more sentient beings that are mistreated, and that is a very strong message I feel like you're relaying in the song.
Yeah, it's one of the things. Like there's so many things depicted in the video. There's factory farming, which is, by the way, this is the main thing that people seem to focus on in the video and also misinterpret. even though I've been plant-based for a couple of years now, I don't personally have a problem with eating meat. The main thing I believe in is personal freedoms and freedom of choice. If you choose to eat meat, I really don't find anything wrong with that. There is a food chain. I know some people feel differently, and I respect that opinion too. So it's the footage in the video is not really an attack on eating meat so much as it's an attack on factory farming. Because for whatever reason, when mass production, gets involved, that's when things seem to go wrong. And I just feel like no matter what your lifestyle is, if you like to hunt your own food, or if you like to eat meat, if most people got to see what actually goes on at a factory farm, they wouldn't support it anymore. And I feel like whether you eat meat or not, you deserve better. So eating meat, I don't feel like has to go, but factory farming does. And I think there's a lot of alternatives that most people aren't aware of, because how do you think about it until you start learning? But that's just this one of the things depicted in the video. The song, I hope the video doesn't come across as preachy by any means, because the song is really just about my own personal journey. It's about being in that awkward phase of ignorance. And action. And it's kind of like, when I first wrote the song, I was very much focused on child labor and slave labor, and just being surrounded by it. And it's about being in that place of finding out that children are getting paid pennies a week to sew your shoes, but not knowing what to do about it. So you kind of get into this space where you just, and you try to ignore it for a bit. And so that's what that song's about. And that's why the chorus is, and, just stay in my selfish pleasures, because it's easier just to pretend like nothing's wrong. And on my own journey, so it's not a judgmental song. It's not criticizing people for being in that place, because I think we're perpetually in that place for different things. So when I wrote the song 10 years ago, I was thinking about, one thing, but when I started to rewrite some of the lyrics today, now for the recorded version, I lost some of the lyrics. So I had to rewrite them. And then I found that the place I was in now was more focused on animal rights. So it's like we're constantly finding out new things. And I always say being ignorant is not a fault. It's actually the default, because we'll always have more to learn. So it's totally okay to be ignorant. It's just not okay to be willfully ignorant. If you're open to the information and trying to be better, I think that's all you can do.
It's difficult. Even if you are in a first or second world nation, because the economics have been set up in such a way that sometimes the only way for you to compete with someone else is to buy the cheapest thing you can, to get a leg up. And especially if you're like a business person, or an independent artist, right? And you want to kind of build your own career, and you have very limited funds to do so, it's easy to buy something that's cheaply made somewhere else, and you don't know what the labor laws are like. So many of us, we want to say, I want to buy, for you would be Canadian, for me it would be American, but it's not always feasible when you're on like shoestring budgets.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is not everyone is going to be able to do the same thing, or I know at a point in my life, being vegan wasn't an option. Everyone has access to different resources.
Same thing with organic.
For a long time. Sorry?
Same thing with organic. Because the pricing. Yeah.
And doing your best looks different for everybody. And I do feel the thing that is often pushed or perceived to be pushed on people ends up in people, and there's such simple things we can do. Like even, if you want to just do meatless Mondays, one night a week where you don't eat meat. I mean, people don't realize what a tiny dip in profits companies have to see before they go, wait a second, what's happening here? And then they start doing surveys, and then they make changes because the dollar speaks, you know. But again, yeah, everybody's, you know, living different circumstances, and everybody's best looks different. So, you know, if we can get beyond the whole judgment thing, I think more people would be willing to do something, you know.
Aren't you holding something tomorrow, Sunday, a discussion online?
I am doing a live Q&A about the music video. I was really nervous about releasing it because even though you said like animal rights isn't a political issue, everything it seems has been politicized. So people have very strong feelings one way or the other. And so I wasn't sure how a lot of the things depicted in the video would really come across. And I was really sure that, I would lose friends and,
Did you lose Facebook friends?
I don't think so. If I did, they didn't say anything. The reception was surprisingly overwhelmingly positive and thoughtful, and people were very open. And I really appreciate the mature discussions that took place about it. But at the same time, there were things that were misinterpreted, like, for example, the animal footage. I had some people saying, I grew up on a farm and it's not all like that. And
of course it's not.
And my mom grew up on a farm. And so like, I know the difference between local farms. And, for the longest time, my father-in-law, he worked on a chicken farm just outside the city, and all the meat I got was from there. So it's, again, it's not an attack on eating meat or farming or anything. It's specifically factory farming that I think we can all do without. And, I just thought it was such a good response, and it was such a different creative process for me too, that I thought a live Q&A would be really fun and interesting to do, to just keep these conversations going further. And just see where it goes.
That's great. And where should people go to find out more about the new Telephone Silence?
So you can search Telephone Silence on Facebook. Right now, it's actually just a personal profile. I haven't converted it into a professional page yet because social media is weird. I thought I'd see what that was like for a bit, to just be a band page, but with a personal profile, not a professional page.
Right. I
might convert it. I might not. So far, I've been really liking how I've been able to connect with people. It feels more intimate.
Okay. Interesting.
So I might not ever change it, but if you search Telephone Silence on Facebook, you'll see me, and you can catch the live Q&A there.
Yep. And I invited you to your own event. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Because you commented on yourself on my Instagram page, so I thought I had to do it right back at you.
Yeah, I'm wrestling with dual identities now. Yeah,
I love it, man.
That's kind of interesting too.
All right. Well, Michael, thank you so much again. And everybody listening week to week, please keep your ears open for Septembrio as our bumper music. And as promised, starting on the 25th of July of 2020, Paranormal Now will now be broadcasting live 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the Tuesday nights, as you probably know, weeks ago we haven't been broadcasting, are being handed over to another podcaster that's to be announced soon as well. But I'm stoked. It's going to be a weekend night. It's going to be a different audience. I have no idea how that's going to play out, but man, I have missed it so much. And I missed the live call-ins as well. So again, everybody look forward for those updates on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And please check out Michael 8 at Septembrio. All right, Michael, have a good night, brother.
Thank you for having me. Good night.
All right, so next up is Mac Barnes and my friend Andrew Gregory, and we will be talking about everything DCEU, MCU, Star Wars. There's so much to cover, and we've got about 38 minutes to do it. I don't know how we're going to do it, guys, but I want to start off with this Batman situation. Like, what is going on with all these different Batmans in the multiverse?
I'm cool with it. I think, if you're going to make a movie about the Joker that's in a different continuity, why not do other characters as well?
But don't you think that'll be like a oversaturation of the Batman character?
That remains to be seen. I think it's good at least they're doing something about it. Because for so long, there's so many properties. He's one of the characters that they can't touch. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think the Michael Keaton thing is pretty cool, honestly.
Okay,
Just saying.
Mac, what's your take?
I am down with the Michael Keaton portrayal of Batman again, but I honestly don't know how I feel about the whole multiverse thing. I think a lot of fans would appreciate if it just kind of all started to mesh together and really get, I don't know, kind of a more solid continuity CU is, because it would be easier to follow and understand. But I can see what they want to do with kind of doing the traditional DC multiverse route, because that's how it is in the comic books.
Right. Mac, how's Kessel Run Comics doing right now?
It's actually doing pretty well. I mean, really the only place I could be doing better was probably with my internet sales. I haven't done really well with that yet, but I haven't really focused on advertising it and getting the word out. I've been telling people word of mouth just in my community and shouting it out a little bit on Instagram, but like I said, no type of ads or promotional stuff.
Yeah. See, as far as the Batman thing goes, I'd love to see Keaton back, but I just looking at the situation we find ourselves in, because now we have the Joker, right? Which is
right.
Like this other was supposed to be a standalone movie, standalone universe, but clearly they're going to do a Joker 2. So you have the Batman, which is a universe. You have the Ben Affleck current DCE universe that we are familiar with, the Snyderverse,
with like Justice League and stuff.
Right, Snyder Cut,
right? And then you
have. I'm looking out. Yeah,
but I just don't see, Mac, how you could bring all these together without a multiverse. How does one even do that?
Yeah, I know. It's just kind of crazy. I honestly think some people just need to get the short end of the stick and just kind of get dropped. I hate to say that, but I mean, hey, if Star Wars can just kind of like drop everything and say one thing and switch everything around, I mean, I think DC has more of the right to, because they've been around way longer than Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. All right, so what Batman do you want to see more?
Well, what are our choices right now? What choice are you giving us?
Well, okay, so you have Keaton, you have Affleck, and oh gosh, what's his name now?
Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson, yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen anything. We haven't seen any actual footage of him yet. Mm-hmm. So I would say the jury's still out on him. I'll give anyone a chance, but I haven't seen anything on him yet.
Yeah, and of course
we're going to see how the Snyder Cut plays out. I think exactly.
Well,
but he is a good actor. The kid is a good actor. He's gotten a lot better as he's aged.
Do you think that because of the COVID situation, do you think that they'll pivot or change their plans? That they have time to rethink?
I mean, I think it's changed pretty much every industry. There's so many production. Nothing's really been in production, since all this time's been off. Mm-hmm. It's definitely changed everything. It's changed release dates, and which is a big thing. But I mean, I think they're definitely changing their overall plans. I think I really don't think overall that like the general population would care if like different movies like took place in different continuities. DC needs to try. They need to try something. They need to try something different because they've been losing that race to Marvel for over 10 years.
Yeah.
So
for sure,
I think they need a shot in the arm. But whatever it is, they need a shot in the arm.
So is Flashpoint the solution then?
I don't hope not.
It's hard to say whether it's the solution or not. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. What's crazy with me is I prefer Grant Gustin Flash over Ezra Miller Flash. So
I'm with you on that, dude. I'm definitely with you on that.
Yeah, I think that's one of those unexpected casting decisions that they're again trying to like play out and see how this works. I kind of think that it would just be better if I guess you can't now because there's this crossover between.
No, I want to stop you real quick. By the way, like
Mhm.
what he's talking about, which was pretty crazy to see that cameo in Crisis this year. That
Yeah,
dude, the dude from the
yeah,
movie appeared on the show, which was pretty ridiculous. That was the most shocking of all the cameos to
Yeah.
me personally. I was like, I couldn't believe it, honestly.
yeah. And when fans saw that,
And I don't know how I feel about it.
a lot of people were thinking that that was going to be kind of a prelude to tying all the stuff together with Infinity Crisis. You know.
Well, and also you have the appearance of Kevin Conroy on Batwoman. Did you guys
Yeah,
see that episode?
yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. It was
So
cool.
but that's
It was a pretty good twist. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but it was a good twist to his little character. I'm a big Conroy fan. Like I love the animated series so much.
well, I think people. It's funny that even with all these new Batmans and even the Nolan Batman universe, still Conroy is like the man, right? I mean, everyone sees him as like the official Batman, and Mark Hamill as the official Joker.
I mean, I think what really sets Conroy apart from everyone else is his differential between Bruce and Batman. Like it's so well done. It's
Yeah,
so well
yeah.
done. It really is.
Well, I guess Ben Affleck did a pretty good job, don't you think?
I guess, but I mean, it's like you're in the suit, you're not in the suit, and it's like he's like completely like a different character, and it's pretty great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's like literally like hiding something like as Bruce Wayne, but like only you know that as a viewer. It's masterful.
Okay, now what about Star Wars? Because the Star Wars, as you know, I mentioned earlier, and Mac kind of reiterated, has been turned on its head already. Now there's this rumor that they could utilize the world between worlds. I think
Yeah.
so that Emperor Palpatine, when Anakin Vader throws him down the shaft of the Death Star, when you see that flash, what actually happens is he saves his life and moves in, uses all the rest of his life force or power to move into the world between worlds, I think, or essentially split off into another timeline. And that's the timeline that we see with Rey.
Yeah.
Hey man, that sounds like a good script to me. You write
That's
that,
kind of
write
what
that.
that's kind of what they're leaning towards. And so if they do that, then everything from, you know, well, see, this is my thing. So how does that happen if that would make everything after episode 6, you know, basically just kind of in another universe? If that's the truth, Mando takes place 5 years after episode 6 and 25 years before episode 7.
Yeah.
So that would mean like anything that's happening in Mando would become legends too.
So okay, so that timeline would become the Legends timeline.
Well, I mean, anything that's not considered part of the or new published can
Since they took over,
the
right? Yeah,
movies,
right.
Clone Wars, Rebels,
Mhm.
Resistance,
So, but okay,
the
so here's
show,
but the question is too:
publishing.
if you have Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, all in these sequels, don't you think even some fans that maybe didn't particularly like the sequels, don't you think they'd be upset if that was now considered non-canon?
For sure, I would be upset.
I don't. Yeah, it's a touchy subject.
It
Like
is.
I
It
definitely
is.
have not been happy with the direction Kennedy's taken the franchise. But there's like certain things that it just can't be done in film. Like certain things are just done better in animation.
Hmm.
That's why like I'm going back to DC. The Flashpoint movie was awesome, and the animation was great because you can do a lot more things than you can. Like if you do a live action of that with all those actors and all those characters, would be crazy.
Yeah.
And to do an actual retcon of like the Holy Trilogy, or like and even like the new part would be it would be unprecedented. I would be really surprised if they actually ended up going with it.
But could you
It might
have?
be interesting.
It might be, yeah. Could you have two timelines, but they're both canon? Because it's just
I
correct me if I'm wrong, and you'll be
That
able to answer this.
What's up?
I said sips drink. He
Oh
said
no,
correct me
just
if he
in
was
that
wrong.
storyline, in the yeah, in the original, in the storyline in the Clone Wars, the three-parter,
Mm-hmm.
they never really like fully resolve
Right.
it. Do they, or do they? Because they kind of like leave some mysteries open, right?
What conflict?
No. The three-episode story of like the world between worlds and like the High
Oh,
Father, and
Oh,
they kind
yeah.
of don't they
So
leave some, they leave
basically,
it open-ended, right?
a little bit. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
much
and I mean, we know that Palpatine has access to the world between worlds because of that episode, and that's canon.
for sure.
So I think, okay, so here's my fantasy. My fantasy is I want to see George Lucas's version of the sequels. And so what I was imagining,
I would love to see that.
yeah, what I was imagining
I would love to
before
see that. Yeah.
any of this came out, I was thinking, how cool would it be if Disney Star Wars, just for the streaming channel, created like their own like Dark Horse label or alternate label of Star Wars where it's not canon but they just tell stories. Like if you want on what is it, CBS All Access, where Star Trek is on, they have these little shorts called short treks.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily have to be canon. They're just like fun little stories that are told.
Right.
I would love to see something like that, an animated version of Lucas's sequel.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, I could totally see that happening, especially with Disney Plus. Like, just because of how successful The Mandalorian has done, like it literally like smashed all streaming records. And, it's canon, it's from the movies. I think they're starting to like realize, oh, we can connect these things.
Yeah.
Like so they have like the Marvel shows coming out now on there. They have like the Obi-Wan show coming out eventually. Who's the
Jeez,
dude
I hate that I got
from Rogue One?
paused.
What's the dude from Rogue One who's getting his own show? Andor or something?
Oh, Cassian.
Andor.
No.
Yeah, he's getting his own
Cassian
show on
Cassian
Disney Plus
Andor,
as
yeah.
well.
Mm-hmm. Which I thought was weird because I didn't know people liked his character so much. I mean, he was cool, but
I think people like Diego
I think it's more
Luna
the
more
name,
than they
the
like.
marquee actor. Yeah, exactly.
So it's about
It's a name. You get a name
And
that's number one on the call sheet. That
plus,
people are going to stand behind.
mm-hmm.
not only that, but I do think that something about his character makes it. And had somebody who's kind of like a spy. So since he's kind of like rebel intelligence and he kind of goes on like, undercover missions and that sort of thing, we can see kind of like a more dirty good guy, but, always in it for the rebellion, do anything I can, have us a leg up.
Right. Okay, so if we can recap the sequels. When the last time we spoke, I was a fan of episode 9. Since then, I've kind of my opinion has changed a little bit. It's not like I hate it or anything. I just think what I liked about it is it's like check, that's done, check, that's done, check, that's done, check. Whew, okay, this story is over. We can put a ribbon on this thing and move on. I think that's my first.
Yeah.
That's why I liked it so much. But upon more genuflection, I was like, there's like some serious weaknesses in it. How do we feel?
Very
Spoiler
much so.
alert to everybody who has not seen. Spoiler alert. How do we feel about the ending with Rey taking on that last name? When we know her real last name is comes from the Emperor.
Someone else.
Yeah.
I mean,
think
I
she
assumed
should
it
have
was
stayed
going to
with
happen.
Palp,
I mean,
dude.
I think she should have
Really
stayed
think she
Palpatine.
should have stayed at Palp.
Interesting.
Yeah,
use the
I was
name.
thinking about this the other day.
Use the name.
and
Get that money.
Yeah,
Get that Palpatine money.
you know what's what's
He's
crazy
definitely got
is,
some assets, man. He's definitely got some assets in Coruscant.
He's got connections.
but geez,
I've left a safe deposit
forgot
the
what I was
box on
gonna say.
Coruscant.
Wait, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
No, I lost my thought. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, are you okay with her choosing the name that she chose?
Oh, ultimately, no. I think that she could do a lot better with the Palpatine name. Not for the reasons that Andrew says, but because people have a way with taking something, and not only does that get something bad out of the galaxy, but that, there have been zero to hero stories before. So why can't we go from being completely evil to, the exact opposite?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and Rey standing up to her grandfather that way, like, she is really the complete opposite of evil. She's all in it for good. Like, she wasn't swayed. Right when she could have struck him down and had all the power, she would have become the Empress Palpatine.
Yeah, but okay, so here it's so cool, and I think JJ.
Well said, Mac. Well said, buddy. That was great.
And I think JJ did something on purpose because he loves his mystery boxes and he likes twists and turns. He made
True
it.
That.
He set this up, I think, in a very a lose-lose situation. Possibly because Palpatine said he wanted her to kill him. Like. That's what he wanted, and she did it.
Threw me off, honestly.
So it's like, wait a minute, did she win or did he win?
Yeah, I was kind of sitting there wondering on the edge of my seat after the movie went black and the credits started to roll. I was thinking about, what's the story beyond that? How old is Rey? Maybe 25 at the oldest? Mm-hmm. She's probably my age. She's probably 22, 23. So if living on Tatooine now, is that a thing? Because I don't know where they're going to go from there, and I want to see some yellow lightsaber Rey action. I mean, if they're going to,
that would be dope.
Keep that, whether if they want different ass Star Wars fans and do like a different direction with movies or with TV or whatever, it would be really, really cool if they still, like you said, Alan, kind of go down some sort of Legends route or alternate route where they keep telling, other stories, and they something with Rey and, her adventures post episode 7.
Yeah. So I could see Dave Filoni doing an animated series following up on that.
Dude, that would be so cool if Dave Filoni did something like that. He would do it perfectly too.
Yeah, because unless they pay the actors a whole lot of money, I think some of them, they don't want to come back. It's like they've had their fun. Maybe they'll come back like 10, 20 years from now, right? But
money talks, bro.
Yeah.
Money talks.
Money talks. Yeah,
it does.
They got that Disney money now, so there's no price that's too big. Hey, listen, I just thought of something. You know how it's been tradition? We've predicted a lot of things. Like, we definitely knew that they would rehire James Gunn. In fact, I'm pretty sure that Marvel rehired him because they watched our show, because it happened like the day after we talked about it that time. Anyway, all right. So Snyder Cut's coming out on HBO now next year. If that does really well and it brings in subscribers, what's to say Disney's like, hold on, why don't we re-edit some of these films, reshoot some scenes, and do like a different cut of episode 7, 8, 9? That could fix some things. And I might be like Nostradamus here right now. I might be onto something. 2, 3 years down the road, we might see something like this.
Wait. Bring JJ back to do all 3 cuts?
No, I'm not saying him, anyone. Just because, just adding, they're adding to a film that's already been released in theaters, and it's already it's been out for a couple of years. Like, pretty much the Snyder Cut, what's happening with it is unprecedented.
Yeah.
And it's all because of an online campaign. And if this turns out well and it's well received, like, what's to say Disney doesn't follow suit and is like, oh, we need to get ourselves some of that?
I think it's definitely possible. I think, first of all, just from a merchandising or sales point of view, if you re-edit and extend cut all 3 of those movies from the sequel trilogy, you're going to be able to sell more Blu-rays. There's going to be perhaps characters that were cut out that we didn't get. You can sell those figures.
The Babu Frick cut.
The Babu Frick cut. Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor Babu Frick. He was overshadowed by Baby Yoda.
You know what
I
I
hate
want to
that
know,
name.
man?
Well,
So
we need
yeah,
okay. The
so
child,
do
the
I.
child, the child. Yeah,
The
Child,
child.
the
Thank you.
child. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
But
but
but we can say the child, but the mass pop culture doesn't know what we're talking about if we say the child.
That's true.
You
That's
know?
true.
it's because they're bots. It's fine. They'll catch on eventually.
Yeah.
I love how Kathleen Kennedy actually wanted to make it Baby Yoda, like reincarnated. That just shows like how out of touch she is with like the source material. And I love that. I love that John and Dave were like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah, they definitely got carte blanche control over that. I mean, that
Thank goodness.
I don't know how that happened, but it's probably because Favreau has made Disney very happy, with his films. So they're like, go ahead, do whatever you want. But that must have been
Dude,
tough.
what I really want,
Mhm.
dude, what I would really love to have, only because nothing personal against Kathleen Kennedy. She just mixes too much in your face politics into the Star Wars. And,
Well, it's
my cousin regularly says that he thinks that Rey is kind of like a Mary Sue, where she just automatically is like so powerful and has, the ability to do whatever. But I don't really mind that. But what I really would love to happen is when her contract ends here at the end of this year, I would love for Disney, and I've been hearing rumors of this, of them talking about trying to get George Lucas to steer things in the right direction and bringing him back. But if they did that, he said that he would want full creative control. Like, they cannot make any decision. He has final on everything.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he would have, I know for sure, because he's already been behind the scenes of The Mandalorian with Favreau and Filoni. And if the three of them were leading us into a new generation of either Star Wars movies, shows, or like deciding what's going to be like published in books and comics, I would be psyched as a freaking
I
Star
love
Wars
that.
fan.
That's a
Yeah.
great idea.
And I honestly,
It would be genius. That's the way to go.
I understand why Taika Waititi got a Star Wars standalone film, but honestly, I would love to see Deborah Chow do a film.
Yeah.
Have you've been watching the behind the scenes for Mandalorian?
Yes,
I
I
haven't.
have.
I should have
Every
watched it.
single
Is it good?
episode.
Dude,
Yes, it is freaking awesome.
It's great.
All right, I'll check it out.
In
I'll check
fact,
it out.
They
I'll
show
trust you.
episode for 8 episodes is a different aspect of the creative process. So like one would be, costumes, one would be sound, one would be acting, one would be, like give you their, overall dialogue about scenes, and it would show, cool little cuts and whatnot. And it was just really, really cool to see them have kind of a roundtable discussion about all of the different episodes and scenes that they worked on.
Yep. Yeah, and I just
It was
think
very insightful.
I'll check it out. That sounds good.
Yeah, I really think Deborah
I'll check
Chow
it out for sure.
is like the next future director for Star Wars. She's supposed to be running, I think, the showrunner on Obi-Wan series. Am I wrong in that?
I actually haven't been keeping up too much with the Obi-Wan series ever since it got postponed indefinitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And COVID didn't help.
So,
Let's be honest. That was before COVID hit it.
right.
Well, I don't
So-
know. I think in terms of Star Wars, I think COVID may actually be, unfortunately so, but a good thing for the Star Wars universe. I think it gives
Pump the brakes a
pump
little
the
bit.
brakes like across the board, because you obviously have different creative people with different ideas of what the future of Star Wars should be, and Kathleen Kennedy's contract is up in 21, right? So I think toward like the fall of 21, like next September or something like that.
Yeah.
So in reality, by the time they start getting production up and running, she's already going to be in exit mode. Passing on the baton to the next team. And so I think it would be really bad in January, her to start all brand new projects when she's only going to leave in 6 months.
That would be terrible. Like,
Yes.
wait till she leaves and start fresh. Rip that Band-Aid off real quick.
The only new thing that I think starting between now and then is the the new publishing of like exploring the High Republic era, which takes place 200 years before Episode 1. So this is kind of like
That's gonna be dope.
almost more a pioneer era for the Jedi. So
Yeah.
they're just kind of almost like outlaws, not in the Wild West type stuff where things are popping off, but kind of, just frontiermen.
Yeah.
On the wide open range.
Yeah, and that was Kennedy's idea too. I think it's a great idea.
Yo, speaking of
So do
TV,
I.
did you
It's
hear about
exploring
the
a completely
deal with
untapped era.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
That's going to be great. I can't wait. I was just going to say, speaking of the Batman, did you hear about the Matt Reeves deal with HBO now as well? He
I heard
basically
about
just
that.
signed a deal. They're doing a TV show that's basically going to be Gotham City Police Department, and it's based in the Robert Pattinson film universe. So it's like a multi-episode deal, and that's like an example of them trying to like catch up with Disney Plus. Like
That's
keeping
really
it in
cool.
universe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it could be good, especially if they focus on like, every now and then you put in like a heavy hitter, but there's like plenty of like trivial villains that they can put in there. But every now and then, throw in the Riddler or something. Have
Yeah.
Paul Dano
Right.
show up,
No, that would be cool.
What universe do you think the new HBO Max, what is it called? Doom Patrol series is going to be? That's a DC team that's getting a show.
Yeah, that's JJ.
That show is great, by the way. If you haven't watched it, it's really good.
I haven't
I haven't
watched
seen
any
season
of
two.
it.
I haven't seen season 2, but season 1 was awesome.
Isn't that JJ Abrams coming in and doing a new?
I don't know about that. I don't think he's involved with it, but
Oh,
I could
okay.
be completely wrong.
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
But he got a $200 million. I think it's
miss a lot
$200
of the
million
DC stuff.
contract with Warner Brothers, JJ, to do a
Whoa.
DC development series of shows.
It's possible. I
Well-
don't know for sure. Honestly, I don't want to say something that fact checker.
Mike Checker.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean he
Eventually we'll have a
got
fact checker on the show. Eventually we'll have one.
he got a deal. I just don't know what the deal is exactly. But he's developing DC shows.
Good.
That's all I know.
I think
Yeah.
maybe something with Justice League Dark, possibly. I might have.
I think
I might
that- I
remember
think
that.
that's it.
awesome. I'm
I
all
think that's
in
it
for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Honestly, that's a great team that needs some exploration.
Zatanna is one of my favorite. She's like my favorite DC character, like female wise. I love Zatanna.
Really?
Zatanna is awesome. I love Zatanna.
That's
dude. She's so
crazy,
good.
right? Right now in the comic
Yeah, and
speculation
then-
market, her book is kind of through the roof. There's a lot of
Oh, man,
spec
I've always
about
been a
it,
fan,
her
dude.
showing up in some sort of HBO show or some sort of movie right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since the Batman animated series episode with Zatanna, dude, I've loved her. She's awesome. And like all
love
of her
the
magic, you have to
Batman
say the word
series.
backwards.
Yeah.
I have to bring it back real quick. Do you
That is true.
think that we will ever see Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker ever again?
I hope so. I think we will in some way. As as long as he's still around and live and well, Hamill will work.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you kind of a funny turnaround question.
Mhm.
So how would you fellas feel if we got Luke Skywalker again, but we got young Luke Skywalker, but Mark Hamill's playing him with CGI assistants, making him look younger?
Yes. Yeah, and then just have
Like
have
instead of like the current Mark Hamill, I'm not sure how old he is, but say he's 68 or 70,
Mhm.
make him look kind of like 45 or 50,
Right.
but make some sort of like,
if they
Luke
could
action.
if they could de-age Joe Pesci as well as they did, they could definitely do Mark Hamill.
They definitely need
I
the
feel that.
whoever worked on The Irishman. They need to go work for ILM immediately.
Immediately, that was amazing.
Help us out.
Yeah.
Help us out.
And then
They can get Billy Lloyd to double for Carrie Fisher and just like and superimpose her face, and we can do it all over
that'd
again.
work.
that would
dude.
be woo.
That you could do that.
Yeah, because that's the only person you could do that with.
That'd
Would
be
be her
great.
daughter.
Yeah. Without a respect, like honestly, if you asked anyone else, like everyone in the world would hate you. At least all the fan base would.
Well, because
I think-
I know
Yeah.
Andrew, you didn't
Out of respect.
Yeah, you didn't like so much the 3D animated Mark and Carrie or Leia.
It wasn't the best. It wasn't the best. It wasn't my favorite part of the movie, but I liked that they did like a flashback.
Yes.
And I mean, what else could they have done?
Mhm.
So like, I like the original trilogy characters. Anytime they're on, I'm always a sucker for it.
Yeah. Now, see, I think that
So how do you guys feel about Ahsoka and Captain Rex and Boba Fett potentially popping up in season 2 of The Mandalorian?
I think it's very cool. I don't want to see
I love
actually.
Rosario Dawson though. I love her. I've always loved her. That's
Oh,
that's like one of my
she's gonna be
one of my top three.
she's gonna
I
be a
love that
great
girl.
she's gonna be a great Ahsoka, and I see no reason why people aren't going to like her. So she's gonna get her own show, and but I don't know how I feel about a Boba Fett series, like a standalone series. I'd be cool with him just
No,
like
no,
showing
no.
up, but
Yeah, that's more what's going
I
to
think he's showing
happen.
up. I think he's
Like episodes
hmm
of The Mandalorian.
but Rex, who would play Rex?
the same guy. The same
Uh,
guy,
Oh,
right?
oh, oh,
Or
Rex,
no,
yeah.
Rex
You're
is
right.
actually going to be
I
played,
think
yeah,
I think
by
it'd be the
Tamara
same actor.
Morrison.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay,
Tamara Morrison's already signed on.
and
He was the guy who played Jango Fett.
and he's kind of aged a little bit well for it too, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
But it
he
makes sense
yeah,
though, because Chloe's
is
aimed slower,
so.
right? So
yeah,
like,
No, they age
and I'm sure they
fast.
could de-age him a little bit,
yeah. He's
Oh,
a,
that's
he's a
right. That's
clone. You can
right. That's
de-age him,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So let
Nice.
me ask you guys something. So
hmm
right now, there's apparently a Star Wars film but a TV show that's under development. A lot of people are thinking it's going to be Ahsoka, but with Ahsoka going to appear in Mandalorian already, and that being confirmed, I don't think that she's going to get a show announced. I think it's going to be some surprising character. But since it's going to be a female character, I'm personally leaning towards a character that it was introduced in the Darth Vader comic run named Dr. Aphra. You guys may or may not be familiar with her, but she is a really, really cool rogue archaeologist. So think of her as kind of like a female Han Solo, except for she's more Indiana Jones than Han Solo.
That sounds really good. And I know that, Disney's definitely taken a lot of this stuff from the comics. Like, they're definitely incorporating it into other things. So that would be really
Yeah,
cool.
they need to.
I do know how the industry works, and I can tell you that I think possibly, like, with all the speculation of, like, it was a big rumor that Rosario was going to be Ahsoka in Mandalorian as a cameo.
hmm
It could be like a backdoor pilot for her own show,
Exactly.
which they
Yep.
like to do, which they
Right.
like to do a lot. And like I was talking about earlier, the same reason Andor's getting his own show, you need to have a name. You get a name attached to the show, someone that can carry the show on their name, someone that's professional, that's not going to mess up production. And
Exactly.
that's
hmm
basically all you need. Everything, like honestly, that's gonna be more popular than Mandalorian, dude. Like as much as buzz as that's generated, I would not be surprised if it's a backdoor pilot for like like after that
Yeah.
episode coming this fall on Disney Plus, Ahsoka.
Well, what is it about the Mandalorian that makes it so appealing to the broad Star Wars base or fandom, the whole
Dude,
fandom?
I have no idea because I thought I really geeked out the first time I watched it, and I watched it like late. But just like the little things they had in there for the fans, like my favorite episode was the one where he has to go after the sandcrawler. I can't remember. I think what is he getting back? Is it the child? He's like
Uh,
attacking the sandcrawler, and all the Jawas are messing with him. I just love that sequence, and it literally like made the show
no,
for me. I loved it.
he was getting back at them for destroying and picking apart his ship, taking the parts.
Okay,
They were
okay.
scrapping it.
All right, guys. So we're gonna wrap it up. But Mac, if there's one thing you can leave us with your dream for Star Wars, what would it be?
Oh, my dream for Star Wars to knock it out of the park with the new High Republic stuff, both across the books and the comics. I think a lot of people are missing
Lost you, Mac.
Star Wars media appreciated.
Oh, Mac, can you say that again?
I said that I really honestly think that if they could knock it out of the park with the High Republic stuff,
Mm-hmm.
then that would help push Star Wars the extra mile, because there are still plenty of people who are out there who read a lot of novels. And I think in the past with Star Wars Legends, some of the stories that were told in the novels were some of the fan base's favorite, storytelling. And,
Mm-hmm.
the way the other series, other fandoms like Harry Potter and Twilight and all other series, like they carry really well in books. I think Star Wars could do the same thing. And since we're exploring an untapped era, I think it's ripe for just new direction, both, dark and light.
Okay. Andrew, what about yourself?
I gotta say, Max right again. I honestly would think they should go back to like the novels of like the '90s, man, like the
Hmm.
Timothy Zahn stuff. And there was also some
Yeah,
really cool anthology books like Tales from Jabba's Palace, Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, and Tales of the Bounty Hunters. So like
yeah,
each one was like a short story about like like the hammerhead in the cantina,
Yeah.
or like
The
the
little,
one the bartender had his own story,
yeah.
like Wower had his own story. Like they could do that like at a TV show, like a multi-season deal,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
would be awesome. It would be really cool, and
that
I
would
don't
be
think it would
really
cost that
cool.
much. You could use the same set. If you're doing Jabba's Palace, you're using the same set each episode. They could definitely save. It would be amazing.
Okay,
But I'd
so
look back again.
for people to find you, is it at Great White Chocolate on Instagram, Andrew?
The Great White Chocolate.
The
You
Great,
got to say the
I'm
whole
sorry,
thing.
I'm sorry, at the Great White Chocolate. And Mac, how do people find Kessel Run Comics?
That's exactly it. It's just Kessel Run Comics, all run together. Kessel Run Comics.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. As always, I'm happy to have you on and have these conversations every once in a while. I don't know when we're gonna pick this up again because everything's just up in the air with production, but hopefully sooner than later.
Understood. All will be well. I'm
Yes,
an
sir.
optimist.
All right, take care, guys. Have a good night.
Good to see you guys. You look
Have a
great.
good night.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Later.
All right. So, if you haven't had your fix yet of entertainment science fiction, you are lucky because we are moving into the second hour and we will be discussing a new movie called Elvis from Outer Space. That is the title, Elvis from Outer Space. And I'm bringing on Tracy Wuischpard, and I hope that I pronounced her name right. Tracy can certainly correct me. And we're also hoping that any moment George Thomas will join us. He is the star Elvis impersonator who starred in this movie. So I'm going to bring on Tracy now. Tracy, welcome to Paranormal Now.
Hey, Alan. Hi.
Hey, I haven't heard yet from George yet, but that's okay. We'll continue on. There's a lot to talk about, and here's a quick description of the movie we'll be discussing tonight. And it goes, it is described as psychedelic rant about a gambling impersonator and his troubles with the Vegas mafia, featuring a hapless crew of broken down impersonators who find themselves in competition with an Elvis who's so good, everybody starts to wonder. There are several promo descriptions, and that was the one I liked the best, describing this film because it leaves a little bit of a mystery there.
That's mine. That's
Is that
the
yours?
one I wrote.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
So, Tracy, before we discuss the film Elvis from Outer Space, a sci-fi fantasy journey, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up working on this project.
Well, it was kind of a funny thing. I had been a television editor. I did music videos and commercials and television shows, and for many years. And then I was in a car accident, a terrible car accident. So I was retired. I'd been retired for about 5 years when I got a call from Robert Balter, who I knew from the Pittsburgh punk scene from many years before. And
You said
Bob
the
Bob
punk.
had been a fan of my band. Yeah, I had a punk rock band.
Oh my gosh! Do you have any recordings you can play for us?
No,
No?
I do not.
Okay.
But they do exist.
Just not to be aired.
Yeah, this is not about that. But anyway, so Bob knew me as a creative person, and I went to Carnegie Mellon. I had a fine arts degree,
Okay.
and so I was involved with. I was a painter, but my boyfriends were in the theater department, so we were doing plays and musical things, and had this band. So anyway, so Bob got in touch with me. He knew I'd been an editor for a long time, and he and Van Jordan had picked up this movie they wanted to try to fix it. And they weren't sure about a lot of technical issues, so they were calling and asking me for advice about technical stuff. And after a few months of giving them, oh, yes, you can do this. Yes, this is possible. They started asking me about story ideas. And I was like, well, oh, okay. It looks like we're getting serious here. So I gave them my idea and they really liked it. And so we decided to give it a shot and remake this film that they found.
Okay. So what are you more interested in, Elvis or aliens? Because, on this show, we talk aliens a lot.
Yeah. Well, I like to talk about aliens. I actually saw a UFO at one point in my life, which was kind of a wild experience. I still don't really know what it was that I saw, but now that I have seen other reports over the years, the kind of movement and that was a little grouping of them. So I don't know. I thought maybe, CMU has an incredible robotics department. And so I thought at the time, it was many years ago, though, like 1979, 80, right in there. I was by myself when I saw these objects.
So they were like lights in the sky?
Yeah, little lights,
okay.
Balls of light that were moving. I was crossing a gorge, and it's called Panther Hollow, on a little bridge, and there were some steam stacks there. There's like a power plant in the gully, and
this is very cinematic sounding. Yeah,
and they were kind of going up and down in the gully. Like, it's so weird because this is opposite the picture. So when my hands go, I'm like fascinated that I'm the opposite way. So they were going up and down in the gully like this, and they were also like circling. They did these like spiral circles up the smokestacks, and it was like they looked like they were playing. And then they kind of came away from that and just sat in the sky and then went straight up with such speed that it didn't make any sense. Like I'd never seen anything move like that. They were just little balls of light.
Yeah, it just endlessly fascinates me, and it doesn't surprise me because so many stories when people come on this program or Coffee and UFOs, or that is such a consistent description. Whatever the behaviors are, the behaviors might be a little bit different, right? But then everyone says like they just take off. And the way I described it, what I saw was like a shooting star in reverse. Like it was so fast that it certainly was not a helicopter. It was not a plane. It wasn't a firefly, reflecting lights.
Yeah.
But that one particular point is what I find most common in eyewitness stories.
Yeah. I told a friend of mine about it, and he said, never speak of this to anyone.
Oh,
so,
that's
for many
too.
years, I didn't say anything about it. I was sort of a little ashamed, like, but I've never hallucinated anything in my whole life. Like, right. It was never an issue or problem for me. Right. But yeah, so that did happen to me.
That's funny you put it that way. Heidi Hollis, I don't know if you're familiar with Heidi Hollis. She's a friend, but she's, pretty well known in the paranormal world. And she has a lot of conversations with a lot of people. She's written her books, and she says that, you give me a license to drive. I passed my exam. I have a job. My eyes are trusted. So if I see something, I'm telling you, I'm seeing something. And I think that that's a fair way to look at it. Now, I mean, granted, we do know that our eyes can play tricks on us, and light and all that, of course. But when you have a prolonged experience where your analytical mind has time to process it, then that's where you're relying on your senses,
Yeah, it wasn't just like, a quick flash or a reflection or a little gleam. It was like a whole episode with all of these movements. And
a question that we had earlier on in the first hour before you came on, and we would like to know, this is from Mindsway, I'll just highlight this here. He would like to know about Elvis being alive or not.
Yeah. Oh, well, I did not originate this film, right? So it came to me with certain pieces, and that was one of the pieces, was that there was, this Elvis that came from outer space. And what we did was expand the whole alien scenario, and we made animated aliens and made these wild scenes of Elvis like performing for the aliens on this ship in space.
Yeah.
Really like took it to the nth degree. I thought it would be fun and kind of psychedelic to sort of, just really expand into that area. Well, anyway, I just always enjoyed those supermarket tabloid stories about, Elvis being taken by the aliens, and Elvis, people seeing him, the spottings, and, I think that there's, he was just so beloved, and people just couldn't bear that he wasn't there anymore.
Right.
And I think that kind of yearning and stuff is really kind of profound. And so, since it had become kind of almost part of the popular culture, I thought, why not? Why not really dig into that idea?
Yeah, well, I think Elvis from Outer Space described as a tabloid come to life is like another way to describe this movie. Yeah. That's a very good way to talk about it. I like that. Yeah, tabloid come to life. It's so fun. It really is. Now, and like in one of the other descriptions, it's zany is another descriptive.
Yes.
But honestly, and I'm not like a super obsessive, Elvis fan, but there is. I mean, I'm an Elvis fan, but a normal Elvis fan. And an everyday Elvis fan. But I would imagine that people who are really into all things Elvis would love this movie.
I hope so. There was a part of me that was afraid that people who really loved Elvis would kind of hate it because there's none of the old Elvis music is here. Elvis is not really here, and so if you go looking for Elvis, like, there could be that frustration of like, it's not really him. But what is there is this love of Elvis and this whole culture of people loving Elvis. And I think that for an Elvis fan, there could be some succor in that, some satisfaction, some comfort in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's making a fantasy come true vicariously for a temporary period of time. In the idea that he could really be out there somewhere.
Yes.
And not.
Well, the movie kind of hints at it. It's like, well, was that him? Is this what this is? Or is it really just somebody who is just a really awesome Elvis impersonator who gets killed by the guy who ultimately wins the contest? And he says, "Oh, aliens did it."
I see. So, I believe that was Elvis, and well, because he had the whole biosuit thing, right?
Yeah.
but that's a very sci-fi kind of thing. So it does beg the question that if Elvis was saved by aliens and they gave him a biosuit, is it really him? Is that truly Elvis in his purest form? Is his soul Elvis, or has he kind of become something that's a mimicry of it?
Yeah, well, we had to kind of figure out a way to make the guy who doesn't look exactly like Elvis, like to say that he is inhabited by, you know, the spirit or by the actual essence, you know, of Elvis. I thought that was kind of an interesting concept, you know, when you think about the way we can kind of make different body parts with a few cells, and how you can like build an ear, build a bone, build a heart,
Sure.
you know. I thought it would be kind of cool to think about, to fantasize about building a whole body from a dying body.
Yeah, but his body can only survive in space.
Well, because they built it in space, so you know they don't have the same gravitational pull. They don't have the same pressures, atmospheric pressures, and so I like the idea that it was sort of a ticking time bomb. You know, we had to put a clock on it in some way, right? And so that was the way we decided to do it. It's like, well, they made it in this body, but it doesn't really last.
Yeah, well, like we know, astronauts, when they go to space for long periods of time, they have decreased bone mass and muscular atrophy. So it would sort of just be an inverted form of that, a body made for that low gravity space. Yeah.
So yeah, if you had been grown in space, like you wouldn't have any of the strengths of a body that had, you know, undergone the rigors of, you know, Earth's atmosphere and pressures.
Who wrote the music for this?
Well, there's
no, for everyone listening, there is no actual Elvis music in this. It's all original songs written in the style of Elvis Presley. Yeah,
and I have to say that this film originated with a pair of brothers who were huge Elvis fans. And the music written by one of the brothers, Neil Silverman, was music that he had written to pitch to Elvis himself. So this is before Elvis was gone. And these songs they really sound like Elvis songs.
They do. Yeah.
But they're not imitations of other songs. They're real, original, you know, bits of music with their own reason to be, you know, with their own heart, with their own message and spirit. And I thought they were really good. I mean, I think some of these songs are fantastic. And they got I wish I could remember his name, but one of the foremost Elvis impersonators to actually record the songs. So I know we see all the different contestants performing them, but they're actually all performed by one guy. And so
yeah, you can tell with the voice, right?
Yeah, so he had the voice, and so they really got a great sound out of it. I thought it was a kind of a fantastic. They made some really good recordings, those guys.
Yeah. There were a couple of songs I really thought this could be on an album. This could totally,
right?
Yeah. And it would be believable. All right, so right now I'm going to play the trailer for Elvis from Outer Space, so to give everyone a little taste. And if they want to watch this, they can go to Amazon Prime, right?
It's on Apple TV and Amazon Prime.
And Apple TV, okay.
Right now, yeah.
Mr. Burroughs, as you know, we are in communication with your friends. Why did you come back? We had an agreement, and we thought you were happy up there.
We made clear that this is most uncomfortable for us. We want you to take him back.
We will not.
And why not?
It is his wish to see his child.
To hell with his wishes.
They were supposed to be going to Vegas, but they drove right through. Elvis started to feel a little uneasy.
Has the Linda meeting been set up?
Not yet. The chief will explain that to you.
So there are a couple of characters that I thought were really interesting, but the love story, I have to say, towards the end, I was really sad. I was really sad that they were splitting up. And I thought he was going to ask her. Oh God, what's her name? Jackie, played by Lauren Elaine Powell, to go to space with him. And like, why not build her a biosuit? Why can't they go to space together?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. That would have been nice.
Maybe it's a sequel. It's her adventure to find Elvis, you know?
he can come back for Jackie. Like, I didn't think about this, but we could make you a biosuit. Come with me.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's funny. It's a shame Thomas is not here yet, but I'll ask him if he does join us soon. But there was actually the chemistry between the two of those was really believable.
Yeah, I thought they were sweet together. I really did.
Did they have much time to rehearse, or was it more of like you had a read through and then that was it? You just started filming.
Those scenes were filmed by the original crew, so that was years before I was involved with this project. So I don't know what that was like for them. Mm-hmm. That wasn't actually the actual trailer. Did you get an actual trailer?
Nope, that was a clip, and I don't have the actual trailer.
Oh my goodness!
But we can find an actual trailer online as we speak.
There you go.
Yeah, and we'll just share it with everybody so they can hear it. So, George Thomas, did you spend much time with George, the Elvis impersonator?
Yeah, I did actually. We brought, in order to, what we ended up doing was cutting away more than half of the film and throwing it out. And we kept the scenes that we really wanted to use, and we built a new story that took care of business for us, that made it all a little more functional dramatically, that worked the storylines, that developed the characters more. So in order to do that, I brought back a few of the actors. I brought back George. I brought back Big M.
Big M.
Who's played by David Heavner.
He was great.
He is the narrator. He was great, right? Yeah, he's good. And Barry Ratcliffe, who plays Barry Live, who has the television show. And they each came back and did additional shots for us. So that was kind of great. Yeah, I especially loved working with Barry. What a character he is. He's a really funny guy. And we did a shoot with him. Actually, I couldn't travel at the time to direct a shoot. So we brought Barry into a green screen studio in Pennsylvania, and I was in New York. And I had a PA that I hired from Pittsburgh go down there and put me on FaceTime on a little tablet, and then she carried me around the studio, and I could watch the scenes. She'd point the monitor, point me at the monitor. She'd bring me to the actors, so I could go up to George, or I could go up to Barry and say, yeah, a little faster here, do this like this, move like that. Okay, we're going to do some dancing. Now we're going to, and it was kind of we invented a way to do remote directing just out of necessity to shoot those guys.
Yeah.
Also
that's
George, because they did some shoots in Los Angeles to those scenes at the end where he starts to burst out with the glow and he walks away from his daughter. Those shots were shot after the fact. We actually, and some of the shots of George with the aliens in the beginning where he's hanging out with them on the spaceship and they're talking to the CIA guy and they're like on the comm link together. Do you remember that? Where aliens like in the screen and George leans in?
Yeah.
George, I think that was 6 or 7 years after they had originally shot the rest of it. And George looked a little different. So we actually had to digitally de-age him so he would match in with the other footage. That's kind of cool.
Wow.
So
okay.
we used something called Beauty Shop or Beauty Studio or something like that. I think it's Boris Effects, actually. My husband's a beta tester for Boris Effects. So we de-aged George. And let me tell you, I wish I could have that like every day for myself. Just
for all of our Zoom calls and
just fix that skin. Just every little everything, every imperfection, just magically brightened and lightened.
Yeah, because there's only so many creams we can put on.
There's only so many creams.
So I'm just going to hide. There's a comment from Mike Sway. He says the movie looks interesting. Yeah, so in regard to that, let's play a little bit of the trailer here. So for those that are listening, yes, this is good for your ears as well. So
now, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay then, I'll tell you how I met Elvis.
We want to return the package ASAP.
He's ready to rock.
It wasn't just another Elvis contest. This one was for everything.
yeah, so
that's the trailer.
That's the trailer. Yeah. Let me close this here. So George, did he has he had acting experience before this, or was he just strictly an Elvis impersonator?
Yeah, no, George is an actor, and he does different kinds of roles, but he, does have quite a career as a tribute artist, as some people like to say.
Tribute artist, okay. Mm-hmm.
He's pretty great at it, and a fabulous dancer. What a great mover he is. So I think he's flown all over the world doing that, for people's parties and all sorts of things, performances, filmed.
Yeah. What is it that makes Elvis so endearing to people? Why does he continue to loom large? And I suspect will be indefinitely. Yeah,
it's wild, isn't it? I don't know. He was first of all, he had an incredible voice. Like, he was an incredible singer. He was a great mover. He took black music to white audiences. And I think he was also, as an artist, so vulnerable in his performances. You could really feel him. You could feel his heart. You could feel his heartbreak. You could feel his joy. You could feel his sexy. He was. It just was transparent. It just came. It came right through. What is that star quality? How is it that some people just are able to communicate their essence so clearly? There's a kind of bravery, I think, that people who do that have, that they just will allow you to see right into them,
Right. Yeah, there's a rawness that's there.
Yeah.
But I guess in those cases, you don't have to show your entire self, right? He shares with us parts of who he is, some vulnerable parts, but we don't know, everything about his, internals, right? Elvis doesn't seem to be a very transparent person. He didn't get to live long enough to write, a retrospective biography.
Yeah.
There's a lot that we don't know about, the inner workings of his mind.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And then he got kind of, he had those later years where he was defocused because he was taking so many drugs. And,
Yeah.
We all kind of got to watch him sort of go through that like so publicly. It's really, when I look at those concerts, it's very painful to see how he'd come to a place where there was just so much pain and disconnection and isolation and depression, and yet it was still his job to get out there and like reveal and entertain, and be a conduit, and but he just couldn't do that anymore.
Is it true?
But he always had that voice, though. That voice never left.
It's amazing, right? Is it true, though, that he was kind of turning things around shortly before he died? Like he was having some realizations and knew that he needed to change his drugs or whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you read I think it's the Albert Goldman book about Elvis? It was sort of like a tell-all book about him. Read it many years ago. And I just wonder if he was taking opiates, there is like a point with opiates where they're so hard on your body that it becomes torturous to continue to take them in a way. And maybe he had just gotten to the point where that was, where that was happening. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Where you just go like, this is not really fun at all anymore.
Yeah.
I would really like to not have to deal with this. So, yeah, I think I do remember that he had started to winnow down his doses and,
right. Yes.
He was trying.
Like he was trying to drop weight.
That's a dangerous moment, though, because if you do cut back
mm-hmm.
and then you have that moment where you're like, oh, I feel really bad. And then you take what was a normal dose for you
mm-hmm.
at, a few weeks ago. And then, it's too much.
Right. And there, there is real pain. I mean, like Michael Jackson, for instance, he had real bodily pain. But what happens is when you're using opioids or painkillers for long periods of time, even if it's just Advil, and you stop, you don't know what it's like to have a baseline anymore. So your normal baseline feels uncomfortable. It feels like you notice little aches and pains and things that you would more easily become accustomed to.
Where you wouldn't feel, you're a raw nerve. Actually, I did go through a period where I took opiates for a pretty long time, so I know about this firsthand.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
After my car accident, I had a lot of nerve damage, and so I took opiates for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And you can slowly make the change, and that's how I did it. Was mm-hmm. just like slowly, and so then you don't. It's not quite so horrific.
Right.
Each step, you kind of like, for a few days, but mm-hmm. then, your body, the body is amazing how it can continue to like right itself and find itself through all of those different, levels of chemical interference,
Yeah, but it's harder to do that if you don't take time off, if you don't stop.
I was going to say, like, he mm-hmm. was trying to do performances through all of that, right?
Exactly.
For me, I could just like cocoon up, okay, I know I'm going to feel bad, I'm going to step down, and the next 3 days are going to be hard.
Yeah.
And I could just like, wrap up on my couch and watch some movies and not talk to anybody for a while. But he had to go out and perform for people in the midst of that. And that would be torture, I imagine.
I wonder if it was akin to Judy Garland, where for her it was the studio, but for him maybe it was the Vegas mafiosa or producers who were saying, "Look, pal, you've got a contract. You're performing. We don't care what you have to do. I don't care who you are. This is the deal."
Yeah. Yeah. He was under tremendous pressure to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
I think when people have achieved that kind of fame, the the pressures are substantial. I know a little bit about the Michael Jackson stuff because as an editor, I was the assistant editor on the Michael Jackson Pepsi commercial where his head caught on fire.
Oh my gosh.
So I saw I was in there looking at the dailies and like looking to see, you could see a little spark leapt onto his head and caught on fire. And my heart really goes out to him when I think of how incredibly painful that must have been to have a scalp that was completely burned like that. Mm-hmm. The nerves on your head, there's so many, right? It's just, so I could totally understand how he would need a doctor to help him sleep. If you can't put your head on a pillow and ever rest, you would just kill for sleep, wouldn't you? Like, you'd do anything for it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And even, even just your, at that point, because he's a dancer, movement is an important part of his life, costumes. So anytime you put a hat on, I mean, every aspect of your life affects you.
Right. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. He was truly, tormented in many ways, actually. So,
well, and it's interesting how one is the king of pop, and one is the king of rock, and they went the same way.
It's not so good to be king sometimes. Really.
Exactly right.
I know people who reach that level of fame, like Marilyn and. Oh, I don't know. I think of the big star, Liz Taylor and Richard Burton. You just think of like, there's just this moment for everyone with this kind of bloated persona, takes over. I don't know. There's very little rest for those people. It seems like a hard life. Everybody wants to be them, but I don't know if it would be so great.
Yeah, and I don't know if necessarily they have to have a big ego in the sense that people usually refer to it, that they're pompous or anything of that sort. Or I think that they feel protected. I think that they feel like they have this like buffer, the safe zone, this space where they can do things that they normally wouldn't do. And it'll somehow work out, and they can push things to the limits, but they're human just like everybody else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think because of their fame, because so many people want access to them, they have to live in these sort of bubbles where they are protected, and then they get really isolated. I think it's hard to, even if somebody who's not famous, somebody who's just like super rich. Yeah. It's hard to know who your friends really are when you feel like, everybody's kind of playing you because you're rich. So if everybody's playing you, like, oh God, you ever hear Rita Hayworth talk about her love life and how, like people would date her and they think they're going to bed with, one of the characters that she played. Exactly. And then, in the morning they wake up and it's Rita, and she's not that person. She's Rita. And they don't know who Rita is, They're just in love with this phantom. That's not her. Right. What a horrible sense of loneliness that would put into someone, I think it's got to be really hard. I mean, people, they don't last. When they reach these kinds of heights, I think it's very hard.
Yeah, I think those who are lucky. Like Matt Damon, I believe his wife he met in a restaurant. She was working in a restaurant. Mm-hmm. Like, she's not famous. You don't know anything about her necessarily, unless you're looking into it, and they seem to be doing okay. I think there's like a realism there, just accepting each other as two human beings.
Yeah, you got to have a normal relationship with somebody who's a real person.
Right. But the irony is, you would think that two ultra famous people, two actors, whoever they are, would understand that, right? Like we need to be ourselves for our own sanity, and not date the movie image.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it works out with actors like Kevin Bacon and Kira Sedgwick. They seem to have it, they seem to have a good thing going on. They both seem pretty cool, and they've got their heads on straight. They're famous, but they're not like, I don't know, that kind of bleeding edge famous. I don't know, that takes people apart.
Well,
it seems like, it's just a cliche. The Hollywood marriages just don't last under those kinds of pressures. I don't know.
Well, speaking of fame, how is the film being received? Are people watching it? What's the latest?
As I told you, I was a little bit nervous that Elvis fans might eviscerate us, but I have to say, it seems like the people who we thought our audience would be seem to kind of really like it a lot. We've had some great reviews. Like, there's a pile of them. And I just am, thrilled. I'm really, truly thrilled with the response it's getting. So, I don't know. It's been a great week. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Do you think that, do you think having COVID-19 occurring, the shelter in place, has sort of allowed extra space for people to explore more independent films?
Oh, absolutely.
Actually, hold on one moment, Tracy. I think I have George calling in by phone. George, can you hear us?
Yeah, I definitely hear you for sure. I tried to go on the StreamYard link, and I could see you and Tracy.
Yes, I saw you trying to come in, but we have you on audio here. Tracy, how does George sound to you?
Sounds good.
All right, great. Well, thanks, George. I'm glad you joined. I see you were trying to sign in as John Burroughs.
Exactly, yeah.
So tell us what the experience was like for you filming this. You're an actor. You are an Elvis, not impersonator. What was the word, Tracy?
Tribute artist.
Tribute artist.
Tribute artist.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, that's a phrase that Elvis's estate coined. I think of myself as an entertainer. I'm under the umbrella of Elvis music, but that's really it. I'm just coming from the place of a performer, just trying to entertain people, and give them the music they really love. And same thing with the acting through the script and the projects that are film related, like this one, of course, and just keep it true to Elvis's, preserve his integrity, keep the essence of what he was, who he was, and what people remember him as, preserve that and bring that to the character to give it some realism within the humor, within the storyline.
All right. What does Elvis mean to you?
As a kid, he was an inspiration and a rebel at a time that I needed some rebelliousness, something to give me some identity of my own in my early teens. I just soaked up the music as a result of, that was about the only thing that was acceptable in my house. My father was pretty strict, so other music I really wasn't that fond of anyway, but I don't think I had much choice. But when I was given the information about Elvis by my grandmother, God rest her soul, and my aunt, it left an impression on me when he died. And the moment I got back home, I ordered my first record collection, and I just absorbed it all, soaked it up like a sponge, and watched all the early movies, especially the 50s movies like King Creole, and that was really a heavy influence on me, was the early years and those films.
Right. And so how much time do you spend actually being Elvis?
It depends. It's rather frequent. It's been frequent for a long, long time, for many years. It varies, of course. I'll give you an example. I had 2 performances tonight. I'm actually about to go into the second one, but I told him I had a very important podcast, and here I am because I didn't want to, I kept thinking this was at midnight Pacific time, so my apologies. But
that's all right.
2 shows today. 2 shows today, and last week, and the week before that, It's taken me all over the world. I've performed for folks the likes of the Kennedy family, Bobby Kennedy Jr. to be exact, and Mikhail Gorbachev for his birthday, and David Lynch, the film director, at his wedding at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Moby was the DJ, so here I am barking orders and giving him instructions, and he was, I say that jokingly, but he was very, very fun to work with, and he was my DJ, and David Lynch was watching, and so it's taken me all over the world performing for the U.S. troops and very, very honorable organizations, good causes, and have performed it for people like athletes like Manny Pacquiao, a lot of corporate clients all over the world, and
hey, George.
the train is not showing any signs of really slowing down, fortunately, except now with this little period, the last 3 months, of course.
George, can you hear Tracy?
George, can you hear me? Was it a State Farm commercial?
Oh, at this moment I don't. Shoot.
You don't hear her?
Ask him.
I hear you, but not her at the moment. No.
Ask him about the State Farm commercial.
She's asking about the State Farm commercial.
Oh yeah, okay.
Talk about that. That was fun.
Is that better for everybody?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
All right, George.
Is that better?
Yep.
No.
No, it's worse.
That's worse. Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's right. Oh, so we wanted to know about the State Farm commercial. Tracy said, could you tell us about that?
Oh, State Farm was that was an interesting culmination of a relationship I had forged with Roman Coppola the year before.
Uh-huh.
Roman Coppola directed it. He directed a project a year before that casting did not want to bring me in for because they didn't even know that I performed Elvis as part of my entertainment wares that I offer, I guess. And I asked them to show him my website because I was not in Los Angeles to be able to audition, and they were a little hesitant, but they finally showed it to him. And then I got an email 2 hours later saying, "You're booked. Roman saw your website. You're booked." That's all it took. That was for the first commercial, which was for Old Navy. A year later, when State Farm rolled around, Roman brought me in. I had auditioned with every other Elvis in Las Vegas, and I think there was 40 of us altogether. And they picked 4 of us out of the 40. And Roman had told the advertising people, the ad agency people, that he had worked with me before. He liked working with me, and he thought I would bring a lot to it because I was very energetic and still am. And we shot that in Las Vegas. It was an all-nighter, and it took one night to shoot. And it was downtown near Fremont Street.
Did you see any of those spots? They were really funny.
I'm going to do
all the Elvises.
I'm going to do something really old-fashioned here, Tracy. Hold on one moment. I'm going to see if I can get him to hear you. John, can you hear Tracy now? Tracy, can you say something?
Can you hear me? George?
Yeah, I hear you very faintly. I do hear you, but faintly.
Yeah, it's okay. You're going to ask the questions. I'm just going to be here.
Okay. Yep, that's fair. That'll work.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you mentioned David Lynch, too, because I wanted to bring that up, actually, earlier, that there was a sort of Twin Peaks-ish kind of feel to the movie.
Ooh, that's nice. I love that.
I don't know if that was intended or it just ended up unfolding that way.
Right. What about you? Do you think that there is some chance that Elvis is out there somewhere?
I think anything, of course, is possible, and maybe he is.
Tracy's shaking her head no.
As much as I would like to believe that he is, in my heart, I would say no, he's not. He's gone, and that's just a fact.
Okay.
But there's that small, slice of people's, belief that would like to think that maybe he did fake his own death because his fame was strangling him to the extent that he needed to get out. He needed the escape, and he found it. I personally don't really believe that's true. No.
I don't know if you both remember or not, but I'm guessing it was around 90, 89, 90 maybe. There was some special on Elvis. And it was like this documentary saying, is Elvis alive? I don't know what channel it was. This is on the cable days. And I think he was supposed to be 50-something years old, and he was hiding out in a farm, and they had images and pictures of him. Do you remember that?
Lord, no, that was what year again? 1990?
It was somewhere around 90. And I remember sitting in front of the TV watching this like, oh my gosh, Elvis is secretly alive on this ranch somewhere. And I mean, I don't know what channel it was, but it was a mainstream cable network.
I never saw that. It doesn't ring a bell, to be honest, but
I'm sure there are some old guys out there who
I never had much
like
of a taste for all this hokey, made up. He's alive, and he's over here in Michigan. He's in Kalamazoo, Michigan. He's at Burger King. I found that to be really silly and a little degrading to his legacy, because he actually was a highly intelligent spiritual guy that he did not get much credit for the level of intelligence he had. And he was an artist in the truest sense of the word. But for business reasons, and Hollywood likes to make surefire products that will bring in box office, the Colonel, his manager, and Hollywood, they formulated a series of films. They came up with a formula that was all about box office and selling, really not the movie, but the soundtracks. They knew they would make way more money in selling the record albums of those movie soundtracks than they would even at the box office in the 1960s.
Right.
And because he wasn't much of a businessman, he signed his life away and he was committed.
Oy. Okay. Which might be the roots of how he ended up.
Well, he muddled in that unhappiness. He was being told he would get, he really wanted to be like in the 60s, Rudolph Valentino, and get these incredible acting roles and opportunities. Yeah. And they were shining him on to tell him that, to keep him going, but he was so unhappy by about 1963, 64. Yeah, maybe a little after, actually. After Viva Las Vegas, it started to go downhill. And before that, it wasn't great, but he could stomach the scripts he was given. But after 65, I'd say it was so formulaic and so repetitive. The writers were told, stick him against a beautiful backdrop with a lot of beautiful girls and a lot of songs, and we'll make a fortune and clean up with the soundtracks. And by 1969, he did a movie called Change of Habit with Mary Tyler Moore, which was a great acting role, and he did a good job. And also when he did a Western called Charo, he was like a spaghetti Western kind of hero, like a Clint Eastwood character, rough around the edges, and it was mostly a dramatic role. So he had the acting chops. He was never really given the credit because they wanted to keep him in that box of campy, silly films and have him sing dogs and all kinds of, animals and on a farm and whatever else, Yeah,
it's a shame he doesn't live now, where you have streaming services and so many different media outlets that no one is boxed in anymore for the most part.
Yeah,
exactly. It was a different world back then, Barbra Streisand came along and offered him the lead role opposite her in A Star Is Born.
Oh my gosh.
And she came to him because he was 40 years old, and he really was that character. He was starting to get, he was becoming a middle-aged guy. He was a little behind the curve as far as his fame and being a rock and roll, relevant artist at the time. He was well known. He had his fan base. Yes. People loved him. Yes. But he wasn't a cool young rock and roll rebel anymore. And because when he hit 40, her story of an aging rock star whose best years were behind him, and he's battling addictions, drugs, alcohol, and everything else, Elvis was perfect for that role. And the Colonel wasn't crazy about it because she was not going to give him top billing. It was going to be Barbra Streisand and Elvis Presley below that. Colonel had a problem with that. Elvis found her a little difficult, to be honest with you, because she came into his dressing room in the early 70s and offered him the job backstage after one of his concerts at the International Hotel in Las Vegas. But she was off right out of the gate. She was a little bossy, a little bit more than he wanted to handle or felt he should handle. So he was very up for the challenge creatively, and it's exactly what his acting career needed to be resurrected with a real role that he could really sink his teeth into and show his emotional range. He would have been amazing. But she was more than he wanted to handle, because she got kind of bossy in that one meeting. He could tell it was going to be a very difficult process. Mm-hmm. And Colonel wasn't crazy about the fact that she was not going to budge. She wanted to be top billing, and Colonel does not want to have Elvis be second fiddle to anybody. So the whole thing went away, and he was sad about that. But I think in the end, the decision was for the very reasons I just stated. That's the way it worked out.
Yeah, well,
it's too bad. She might have been bossy, but she might have been a good boss and made a good movie for him.
Yeah, I mean, Tracy was saying she might have been bossy, but maybe she would have made a great, movie for him.
Oh, I agree with it. Yeah, I mean, there's different people have different points of view on what happened when they met. Mm-hmm. What I found out from Joe Esposito, who was very close to Elvis, was that Joe said she came into that meeting and she wanted to control so much of the conversation, and she was trying to exert a level of control that really wasn't appropriate at that time in a first meeting, because he was all for doing it,
right?
But he knew she'd be difficult to work with, and I think it just didn't sit too well with him, mm-hmm. as much as he tried, because I know he really wanted to play that role. It's something he was living that character. He was that guy. So it would have been a great performance, from him.
And yet you are playing Elvis in a sci-fi film, coming from outer space to visit his daughter in the future. Is that okay? Is that okay to play with Elvis's image that way?
Well, knowing it's a fantasy concept, sure, because... Mm-hmm. He's coming back to retrieve his daughter, and his daughter means the world to him, and he'll do anything to keep her safe and to get her to get her out of a bad situation, and to reunite, to tell her things that he didn't have a chance when he was on Earth, when she was a little kid. I think she was like 8 years old when he passed away.
So we're going to run out of time here, George. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad you got here at least when you did. So if you can let the audience know where they can find out more about George Thomas.
Oh, God, thank you. If you go, for example, I have a show that I'm working on as well right now. A friend of mine who wrote a series. That series will premiere on the El Rey channel. So simultaneously, I'd love to see Elvis from Outer Space run indefinitely. And at the same time, people can maybe tune into Sangre Negra, which is the El Rey Network show that's about to be released on the El Rey Network, and they'll be streaming it as well. And I play Cole, a undercover cop. It's completely non-Elvis, unrelated to Elvis. Mm-hmm. He's more like a young Clint Eastwood from Rawhide, with a bit of an edge and a bit of a sarcastic sense of humor, mm-hmm. but a good guy at heart. And that'll be airing soon on the El Rey Network. Look for Sangre Negra. Otherwise, if you look online, there's a lot of my Elvis tribute videos on the web under George Thomas Elvis or George Thomas Viva Las Vegas Ultimate Elvis Tribute.
All right. George, thank you so much, and have a fantastic evening.
Thank you all very much for taking me on at this time, and thanks for all the listeners out there. Enjoy the movie, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the future.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Take care. All
right, Tracy. Thank you so much again for joining. So where can we find out more about yourself or the film?
Oh, gosh. Well, it's everywhere. If you Google this movie, there are a million reviews, and there's it's easy for everybody to see. Go to Apple TV, Amazon Prime, mm-hmm. and please check it out.
All right. Well, that's it for Paranormal Now. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Elvis from Outer Space. Do check it out. It is fun, and I'm sure you will enjoy it thoroughly as much as I did. Reminder, starting Saturday, July 25th, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, this will be our new slot on KGRA Radio. So as you know, obviously tonight is a pop-up night. This recording will rebroadcast on KGRA this week. We'll be off next week and officially in our new slot 2 weeks from now. So I look forward to seeing you all there. And to everyone else out there who has continued to support this show, thank you so much. It means more to me than you know. Obviously, we've started on Inception Radio Network. We went independent. We found our home on KGRA. And then unfortunately, COVID happened and, things got shuffled around, things that were out of my control. But I know that you understand that. So thanks for sticking with us. As always, please check out all the other KGRA radio shows, kgraradio.com. And normally I would thank my producer, Race Hobbs or Bill Skywatcher, but I'm lonesome tonight, so I will thank myself. Trust me, I'd much rather have a producer any other day. All right, take care, everyone, and until next time, live in the mystery.